Previously, on Palace of Mirrors. After killing a member of Bluebeard's crew, Darien's fate lies in the conclusion of a trial by combat against Fantasia. During their duel, Darien fell, and the hand holding his sword landed in the reflecting pool at the center of the ruined temple where they fought. And now, Palace of Mirrors, Season 1, Episode 18, Hush. The instant his hand touched the surface of the water, Darien felt as though the world spun so that he stuck to the earth and the sky lay below him. Except, he realized, the sky had been replaced. The clouds, eternal as any forest Darien had ever known, had vanished. In their place lay a sky the deepest black he had ever known, and in that sky clung snowflakes of light. "Captain," said an unfamiliar voice. The moment Darien heard the voice, he realized that Fantasia, the pirates, Bluebeard, the mountains, and the circle of stones had all vanished. "Stars," he tried to whisper, but his body did not respond. His head turned all on its own. He tried to move his hands, tried to call out, tried to turn back to the stars, but his body no longer belonged to him. It turned from the view, and Darien could only watch. A young man, shoulder-length blonde hair tied in a tight bun, stood in front of a console. He gave Darien a puzzled look and leaned forward, concern on his face. "Captain, did you hear me?" Yes," a wary voice answered from Darien's mouth. "I felt for a moment I was somewhere else. A desolate field. But never mind that. What did you have for me?" "4 ships on an intercept course." A hungry look came over the younger man's face. Darien recognized it all too well as the bloodlust he had seen just moments before on Fantasia's face. "Do you think they're rebels? Will there be a fight?" Darien's hand reached down to the hilt of his sword. "No one would come this way unless they meant to join Great Skull's fleet. By the palace, we mustn't let them pass." He sighed. "To think it would come to this." The body Darien inhabited took a seat in the captain's chair. The stars were everything Kathy had promised and more. He tried to imagine that every point of light might hold worlds like his own, and felt dizzy. 4 of the stars grew larger on the screen, until they had become curved silver ships flying against the night. They spread out as they reached the ship Darien found himself within. "Report. What are we facing?" "Palace, save us," said the younger man. 4 Harbinger-class ships broken off from the 5th Fleet. Their weapons are powered up, and their defense screens are active." With a deep breath, the man Darien possessed flipped a switch on the armrest of his chair and sat up straight. He waited a beat before speaking. "This is Captain Gideon of the Imperial Fleet Ship Feather. I order you to stand down and submit your ships for surrender to the Empress." The younger man shook his head to indicate no response from the ships. "Please, don't do this. Don't make me do this. I know you swore the same oaths I did. Do they mean nothing to you? By the Palace of Mirrors, I beg you." The ships floated, silent and unyielding. "Very well. I have no choice but to—" Thunder filled the bridge, and the deck lurched violently. Darien spilled from Captain Gideon's seat. A force of air, beyond any wind that he had ever experienced, tumbled him end over end. All at once the wind ceased, and the room grew deathly calm, the calm of the darkest of nights. How many such nights had Darien huddled outside in the freshly fallen snow, staring to the sky, hoping for just a glimpse of starlight? The young man lay writhing on the ground, his hands at his throat. He opened his mouth, as if to scream, but only silence issued. Tears rolled down his face, and then gravity let go. The tears spun into the room. Darien drifted from the floor, like a ghost from a corpse. He floated in the fog of his own fading breath, He rolled in the air and saw the asteroid cradled in the torn folds of the bridge's ceiling. His limbs tangled with the young man's, and then they continued on their separate trajectories. Black closed around his vision, but not before he glimpsed on a console how the asteroid had been boosted from its orbit by a hiding ship. With one final spin, he faced the view screen. The stars flickered out, one by one, until only darkness remained in the mute world of Captain Gideon. Darien gasped awake. He had never craved the rush of air into his lungs as he did in that moment. He blinked at the bright light of the sky, so different from the black of space. The roar of the mountain wind and the ruckus of the cheering pirates accosted him, and he wondered for a dizzy moment if he still lay on the bridge with the torrent of wind rushing past him into the vacuum of space. No, it had been silent when he witnessed the death of Captain Gideon, and this place where he lay was anything but silent. Fantasia stood over him, her sword poised to behead him. With a startled cry, he rolled to the side. Fantasia's blade sparked on the rocks where he had been lying. Before she could turn to finish him, Darien tackled her legs. She toppled under his weight, and they rolled together in a tangle of arms, legs, and swords. Water rained down from Darien's blade. The drops struck them with all the weight of time. A girl stood on a narrow, cluttered street, far distant from the broken temple where they fought. The girl stood, torrents of rain drenching her small body. Lightning lit the sky, and thunder grumbled. Darien landed on top of Fantasia, straddling her. He grasped her head in his hands. In the flash of lightning, children's bodies lay strewn. Fantasia's eyes cut into Darien. His skin prickled with goosebumps. The girl ran from body to body, shaking them. The sound of the rain muted her cries. Fantasia's hair, which had come untied as they wrestled, spread out beneath them like a blanket. The girl wept, but her tears were indistinguishable from the rain. At last, she kissed one of the bodies on the forehead and lifted a sword from their hand. She stood and vanished into a curtain of rain. She's you, said Darien. Fantasia froze, and for that moment they might have been lovers lying together in the ruins of that once sacred place. Fear crossed her face, and then transformed to rage. Her sword whistled even as Darien slammed her head into the ground. The blow jarred her hand just enough that the blade hit him flat instead of along the edge. Still, it knocked the breath from his chest and sent him reeling off her. They struggled, staggering, to their feet. Darien slipped on his own blood, but steadied himself with his sword. They circled one another, both of them breathing raggedly, and the mountains circled them in turn. Fantasia advanced. Her hair whipped, a curtain of night, and her swords, ceaseless and inescapable, battered him. One after another they sounded against his sword, and then past it. Blood wept from dozens of shallow wounds. Darien cried out, but Fantasia did not falter. At last, his sword arm dropped limp to his side, and Darien collapsed to his knees. Hush now, he imagined Kathy whispering in his ear. You won't hurt forever. Eventually, things must change. Captain Gideon had learned that lesson as he floated from the floor of his own bridge, Bluebeard's future sword strapped to his side. The wind had raged in that moment of change, furious and impotent, but things had changed all the same. True silence, the silence of space, had wrapped itself around the bridge when the wind had roared its last. Darien had barely known Marialla, but now, for once in his life, he found that he didn't want the silence of space. He wanted the silence of her breath, the way it had sounded when she fell asleep in the basement, hushed, but never empty. Darien wondered where she was now, alone and far from home. Hush now, he imagined Kathy whispering in his ear. You can't know the future any more than you can know the past. Fantasia stood with such poise. She pulled back, and Darien knew it wouldn't be to wound this time. She wouldn't give him the hush of a body at rest. She would give him the silence of space. She would take everything Kathy had made of him. She would take his father's stern voice. She would take the name his mother had given him. She would take it all, and she would leave nothing behind but blood. Darien rose up, still on one knee, and turned aside her strike. He swayed as he stood, but he did stand. "What are you fighting for? You can barely stand. You might as well be a ghost already." A sneer twisted her beautiful face, like a reflection in a warped mirror. "No!" Darien shook his head. Tears and sweat and blood rained down. "What are you fighting for? You're still that scared girl in the rain, aren't you?" Fantasia reared back. "You don't know anything about that girl." "I know that once she was powerless." Wind rippled the reflecting pool. It tore at their hair and clothes. It reminded Darien of Sally sitting on the steps in spring, while the wind shook the branches of the trees. She clutched the family fiddle to her heart. It had been their mother's. Her hands had helped to wear the wood smooth, and now her daughter's hands did the same. Music rose up into the sky, note after note, and joined the rushing of the wind through the trees. No trees grew in the desolation where the temple ruins stood. Only boulders and mountains could thrive here. The wind out of the mountains did not whisper like the wind through the trees. Furious, nearly out of control, it careened, but Darien caught the rhythm all the same. He knew it, had heard it before, the day he touched the engine, the roar of the asteroid that had ended its journey on his small world. He drove his sword with all that fury. Fantasia's eyes widened, and she stumbled back a step. They danced back and forth, swords singing. The pirates no longer cheered. They no longer yelled out curses. They didn't know what they heard in the wind. They didn't know what they saw in Darien's sword. But they knew rage. Every one of them had been broken at some point in their life. Many of them had been broken little by little with every moment that passed, until the person who stepped out the other side was someone warped and twisted. Darien barely dared breathe for fear he would lose the wind. Their crashing swords created a metronome, so like his mother's, and so different. It lay so far away. He might never see it again. He might never again wake to find his father cleaning it gently with his large calloused hands. He might never again look at it, and for that single moment, know his mother. He felt like snow under a summer sky. His body ached, and he felt sticky with blood. Tears rolled down his face, red by the time they hit the ground. Still, he followed the wind, and Fantasia fell back. He could see now several moves ahead. He could end this fight. He just had to make it 3 steps forward. 1. Her sword just blocked his blade. 2. He swung up and countered her second sword. There. He saw it now. An opening between her 2 blades just large enough for his own sword. 3. The wind stopped, and the silence hit Darien as hard as a blow to his chest. He missed his swing and slipped on the mud. Fantasia's face had been a mixture of desperation and rage, but now a wide grin contorted her expression. She drove her sword down. With a solid thunk, it sliced into Darien's thigh, all the way through the bone and out the bottom. Blood sprayed out and black tinged Darien's vision, even as he screamed. Only the hours of training kept him from dropping his sword. Fantasia could have ended it all right there, but instead she beat down on his useless sword. She slammed down with all the force in her body, and each blow brought Darien's sword closer to his own face. She stepped back, laughed, and with a flourish swept Darien's sword from his hands. It sailed through the air and clattered against the temple stones. Fantasia caressed Darien's neck with one of her swords. "Who's powerless now?" Darien slumped down. The world had gone soft along all the edges. Numbness had replaced pain, but it didn't feel like a kindness. It felt like betrayal. His body had given up. The mud under him had turned a red so dark it almost looked black. "Please," his voice quivered. "I always knew you were a coward. I I am. I don't want to die. I want to see the stars." Fantasia looked to the sky, and for that moment she looked like the girl Darien had glimpsed. When she looked back down, Darien saw the edges time had put there. She brushed his face with the back of her hand. "One of us has to die here." She pulled her sword back and ready to swing. "Wanting won't make it otherwise." The sword came down, lightning from the shrouded sky. Darien didn't have time to gasp, or close his eyes, or put up some kind of last-minute save. He didn't have time to think of Kathy or stars. He didn't have time to so much as dream of another life, a life where he never came to stand in this broken place on the edge of the world. A sour note, not the slice of metal into flesh and bone, but instead the sound of a sword interrupted, echoed out over the reflecting pool. Gent, for once not wearing a coat or cape, stood beside Darien. His sword hung in the air between Darien and Fantasia. With a flick of his wrist, he pushed Fantasia's blade away. He smirked at the shocked expression on her face. You have no place here," she shouted over the jeering pirates. "You could have fooled me. I seem to be standing right here." Fantasia glanced to Bluebeard, and then back to Gent. "This is a trial. You can't just barge into the middle." "Sure I can." Gent flashed a wide smile. "I'm the kid's second, and I'll barge wherever the hell I want." "He named no second." "Maybe you just didn't hear him." Gent winked. "Isn't that right, Spitface?" Darien managed a nod, though he felt the world spinning beneath him. Fantasia laughed, her voice as unsteady as the surface of the moon beneath them. "This is just too delicious. I get to kill the both of you." She charged. Gent turned aside both her swords and danced in with an attack of his own. Watching them, Darien understood how little he had learned. They moved like rain tearing out of the sky. Their swords clashed in flashes of light, music pouring forth with every blow. At the end, Fantasia broke back. "What's the matter?" Gent flashed a feral grin. "Did he tire you out? I think you might be slipping." "Where'd you put your fancy outfit? I'd hate for you to die without your cape." "Fight in my cape?" Gent waved a hand. "I'd get your blood all over it." Fantasia drove forward, her blades a blur, and this time Gent fell back. Darien realized, as he watched, that Gent lacked Fantasia's skill, though he clearly knew his way around a sword. Had he ever seen the pirate draw his sword? No. Gent spent his time in the bowels of the ship with a wrench in hand. He never ventured to the training room, and he never joined the others when they raided. The engineer knew how to hold a sword, and even how to find the shape of the fight, but his lack of muscle memory showed as Fantasia's blades closed in from every side. Step by step, she backed him to the edge of the pool. He teetered, the heels of his boots sending ripples out across the water behind him. Sweat beaded his face. "Shall we send you into the pool?" Fantasia smiled, as though with an intimate friend, and her voice purred. "I've heard stories of men falling into these pools and never being seen again." One of her swords sliced his shirt. Blood welled up from the shallow wound. "Some fools say the Palace of Mirrors takes them to a better place." She glanced at Bluebeard. "Can you believe it? The Palace of Mirrors. It couldn't even save itself." With a ferocious combination, she forced Gent ankle deep. "I'll tell you what you're going to find in that what?" Darien drove his sword through her back. The blade paused an instant, before crunching through her spine and out the other side in a spray of red mist. His body shivered violently, even as her body shuddered. She fell from his sword and splashed face first into the pool. Blood spread like a storm front through the water. Her body rolled lazily, so she faced the sky, her eyes closed to the light. Her porcelain skin glowed in contrast with the rose water, and her hair swayed with the waves made by her fall, a shimmering night sky. Darien collapsed, shivering violently. Gent stepped over Fantasia's body and rushed to his side. He leaned down and grabbed Darien by the shoulders. "Come on now, you don't get to die on me now. Not after my big rescue." Bluebeard limped over and knelt on the shore beside Fantasia. "I should have done more for you. Should have done better," a mountain wind answered, and the bloody water rippled and shimmered. Bluebeard leaned down and brushed his hand across the side of Fantasia's face. Her eyes opened, and Bluebeard stumbled back. They had always been dark eyes, but in the glow of the blood-stained pool, they glimmered purple. Her mouth stretched into something that might have been a grin or a rictus. Laughter bubbled up out of her body, and blood flecked her cheeks. She locked eyes with Darien. "You'll lose," her voice gurgled. "Her blood will soak your hands, and you will weep. I swear it thrice. I swear it on my death. I swear it by the Palace of Mirrors. I swear it by the stars and by the night. I swear it. You will weep." The laughter transformed to one final gasping breath, and then to silence. The purple light faded from her eyes, but the smile remained. Darien rolled over and saw the bloody trail where he dragged himself across the ground to kill Fantasia. He didn't remember doing it, but it had happened all the same. He tried to stand, but his body didn't respond. He felt as though he lay in a blanket of soft snow. That seemed right. He had always known he would die in snow. Light faded. He only regretted that Kathy wasn't by his side to see him to the end. On the next episode of Palace of Mirrors, while Darien recuperates in the medbay, Bluebeard tells the rest of his story, all the way to the conclusion of his confrontation with Arlinda. Thank you for listening to Palace of Mirrors. If you liked the show, please give it a 5-star rating on your platform of choice and share it with anyone you know who might enjoy it. I truly appreciate your support. The podcast was produced, written, and narrated by Matthew Lindquist, with music by Nature's Eye on Pixabay.